Hello, everyone. I'm Chad C., and this is How to Set Yourself Up for Success in a Taxidermy Business. This is a seminar that I've done at several state shows, and I just kind of felt there might be a need to put this out in a digital format so that people could see this more readily and have it available. That way, they can take their time, look at the slides, and just kind of go at your own pace. So, with that being said, let's go. The first thing I'd like to talk about, and what I feel is one of the most important things in this whole seminar, is how to set your pricing. And as you're going to see, there are three basic steps in how I figure pricing. And the first thing we need to do is figure out our overhead. We need to second figure out cost of materials, and then we need to figure out the amount of time associated with each mount. For today's seminar, we're going to be using a white-tailed deer mount as an example, but if you were doing a life-size bear or a bobcat or a bird or a fish or whatever else, you would figure this all the exact same way. Just again, overhead, cost, and time. So one thing that I've found when I talk to a lot of other taxidermists is that a lot of people are not factoring in overhead into their pricing. And a lot of people don't know what overhead is or even how to figure it. So I also want to talk about that today a little bit so you get an idea. First of all, what is overhead? And overhead is the cost of running your business. That's your day-to-day expenses. That can be your electric bill, that can be your water bill, your mortgage, things of that nature. Um, what you also need to keep in mind is that for today's purposes, I'm going to be making up some numbers, throwing some numbers in. Um, you can't just use the numbers I give you today and set your pricing based off that. You need to go in and figure your own actual costs because the numbers I give you today are not going to be accurate for your business. Everybody's expenses, everybody's overhead is going to vary and be different. So you need to make sure that you have it individualized for yourself. So be sure that you get an accurate idea and use your own numbers. The other thing that I have people tell me is that, hey, they say, Chad, I don't have a dedicated studio, but I use the basement of my house, or I use my garage, or whatever. So how do I figure out, how to pay my electric bill for what portion of that is for my business? And what I tell people is figure out the square footage that you're using for your shop. So let's say that you measure it out and you're using 10% of your home is being used as taxidermy studio. When you go to figure your bills for that, you take your electric bill, take 10% of that electric bill, apply that as that's what's being used for taxidermy. Um, that just gives you a good idea of how to figure those expenses. So how do we figure overhead? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to kind of itemize everything that we're spending money on monthly. I got an example here. We're going to start out with a shop payment. We're going to assume that this number is a loan that you took out for your building materials, such as mounting stands, power tools, freezers, all the basic taxidermy equipment. And we're going to estimate that your monthly payment for that is $650. Um, Electric bill, propane, water bill, phone bill and internet, shop insurance, trash bill, health insurance, retirement plan contribution. And yes, you should be figuring out, if you had a standard job, most likely you're going to be getting a retirement plan or you're going to have health insurance included. So those are business expenses that you need to factor in for yourself and make sure that you have those factored into your overhead. So with the numbers that I've given today, it looks like we're at a total of $1,780 a month for overhead. Again, your numbers may vary from this, but this gives you a good idea of how to figure your overhead. So now that we know what our overhead for the month is, we also have to figure out what our overhead per hour is. So for the sake of this seminar, we're going to assume that you work 40 hours a week. You work 5 days a week, and that there are 160 working hours in a month. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the $1,780, we're going to divide that by the 160 working hours, and it gives us a total of $11.13 per working hour. So your overhead is $11.13 per hour. So when we go into figure pricing, we know that we need to factor in that we already have $11.13 per hour that it's costing us to keep the doors open on our studio. The next step here is to figure out the material cost for our white-tailed deer. And material cost for the deer is anything that we're going to use to produce this mount. I'm using some McKinsey numbers because it was just easy to go to the catalog and pull that. I know that a lot of you guys use other suppliers, and that's perfectly fine. So your numbers are going to vary. And again, these numbers are from a couple years ago, so they're probably not even the most accurate at this point. But just know that the numbers I give you here are just numbers for the seminar. You need to go in and actually figure out exactly what it is that your material costs are and use those numbers for your own pricing. All right, as you can see here, I have a materials list for you up on the screen. Um, 93.80 for a form, 13.50 for eyes, which we all know eyes can be much more expensive. If you're buying a septum, $3.20. Ear liners, 9.25. Tanning is about $100. I know some of you are going to say, "Well, I tan my own hides," and that's fine, but you need to figure out what you're spending in tanning chemicals per hide. So once you get that figured out, plug that number in here. But then you also have to figure in the time, and we'll do that at a later point in time. But if you're spending 5 hours in the tanning process and shaving process, you need to include that in your time because time is money. We have the shipping to the tannery, shipping from the tannery. We have just basic materials of screws and hangers, paint, whatnot, shipping for materials, and we have a total here of $344.75 per white-tailed deer. So this gives you a good idea of what you have involved in just the material cost for each individual whitetail that you're going to mount in your studio. As I talked about in the last slide, I know that some of you are probably thinking that you tan your hides in house, that you use Bondo ears, and a little bit about how you're going to figure that out as far as what your costs go. So what basically, like, let's assume that you have $50 in tanning supplies, and you know that that's going to tan 5 deer. That means you have a total of $10 per deer in tanning. And now, mind you, that's a whole lot less than the $100 that I had figured over there. But you also have to figure the time that you have involved with that. So we'll move on to that next step of figuring out what the timeline is per your mounts. The amount of time that each of us put into a mount is also going to be one of those areas that vary a whole lot. If you've been in business for 20 years and you can sew a deer up really quick, or you can mount a deer really quick, maybe you mount 2 deer a day, 3 deer a day. Everybody's going to be different. Some people might take 2 days to mount 1 deer. So you have to look at yourself and be really honest here, because you need to factor in and get an exact figure on how much time you're spending per each deer, because again, time is money, and this is going to help you set the most accurate price that you can for yourself. So the next deer you mount, take the time, look at the clock, make sure that you are figuring accurately what your time invested in each piece is. All right, here's what I kind of figured for the time spent mounting a deer. And you're going to see here that I've tried to factor in every aspect of what is involved in taking in a deer. You can see the very first thing I start off with is client drop off and paperwork, and you can see I've allotted an hour for that. Almost every customer that comes in wants to tell you the story of their hunt, and they want to reiterate, how they want things done. And there's a lot of discussion that happens, so I figure an hour for that. I'm going to assume that they left a bunch of neck meat in the deer and that there's going to be some stuff for me to work with. I'm going to figure an hour in skinning. Um, for me, I've got to box capes up. If I've got to ship them to the tannery, I'm 45 minutes from my shipping location, so it's at least an hour and a half for me just to go to there into the shipping location to ship hides. If I'm driving hides to the tannery, obviously that's different. But again, we'll use that hour and a half for an example here. Form prep of an hour, hide prep of an hour, mounting 2 hours, finish work of an hour, grooming of a half hour, Client pickup and final paperwork is a half hour allotted there. And I'll be honest with you, that may be a little bit generous because some clients come in and you got to hear the story again. You may be looking at an additional hour on that client pickup. But for the numbers we've used today, we're looking at a total time in each white-tailed deer of 9.5 hours. So that's the number we're going to use from this point forward. So now that we know our monthly overhead and our hourly overhead in our studio, we know what the cost of our materials are for our deer. Now we're going to figure out what the overhead per deer is. So we know we have 9.5 hours in each deer. We know that we have $11.13 per working hour of overhead. That means that for each deer we mount in our studio, we have $105.99, or sorry, $105.69 per deer just in overhead. So we're going to take the cost of the overhead and we're going to add that to the cost of materials for our deer. So now what we have is $450.44 per deer. So that's a baseline for us to get started on our pricing. Another important thing to consider whenever you're doing your pricing is you need to figure in a profit for the shop. And this is not the money that you make personally. This is the money that the shop makes. And you may say, well, what's the difference? Well, money you make goes to you. Money the shop makes gets set aside for shop expenses. Let's assume that something happens and you need a new roof on your shop at some point. There's money set aside for that. You need new flooring. There's money set aside for that. You decide to buy a new security system. There's money set aside for that. So basically, what I figure is I figure 30% the cost of my materials. We're going to mark it up 30%, and that money is going to go to the shop. So whenever we figure out 30% of our $450.44, that comes out to be $135.13 for markup. So we're going to mark up our material expense this much, and now we have a total of $585.57. So based off of the numbers I've given you, the total you have in each white-tailed deer is $585.57. So that's what we're going to use now to set our price. Now, here comes the fun part. This is the part of being a business owner that everybody thinks is the greatest and the best part. Now we get to set our own hourly wage. If you ever wanted the chance to make a lot of money or pay yourself a lot of money, this is where it's at. So we're going to assume, for the sake of this seminar, that you'd like to make $25 an hour. Okay, so we know that we have 9 hours and a half in each white-tailed deer. So 9 hours and a half times $25 an hour is $237.50. Now we're going to add that to the material cost because this is our profit. So we're going to take 237.50. We're going to add that to the 585.57. Now we have a total of $823.07. That's what you need to be charging with the numbers that I've given you today in order to make $25 an hour in your studio. So think about your current pricing, think about your current expenses, think about all the current stuff, and see if that's where if you're priced accordingly. Knowing what you're making per hour is extremely important, and having a set rate for your studio is extremely important. um, you know, if you decide you have to do form alterations or things like that, this is going to allow you to charge accordingly. You can simply tell customers, anything over and beyond the cost of a normal mount. Let's say that someone wants a custom whitetail with a custom pose that you have to cut the form apart and alter everything to make it work. Well, by having a set hourly rate, you know that, okay, it took me 4 hours to alter this mannequin. 4 hours at $25 an hour, I need to charge an additional $100 for this alteration. That goes the same thing for all your life size work or for whatever else. You can use that as kind of a basic idea of setting your hourly rate for habitats and things of that nature, because those are all things we need to be charging for. So just be sure that you have an hourly rate and that is set as the hourly rate for your studio, so you know what you're making per hour on everything that you do in shop. So now we're going to work some numbers in reverse. And what we're going to do is we're going to allow you to understand what you're currently making per hour. So go through and you're going to figure all these material costs for yourself. Get everything figured out exactly like I have shown you to do. Um, Now we're going to assume that your current price is $700 a deer. So we're going to take the $700 a deer, we're going to subtract the 585.57, and that's going to leave us with $114.43 profit per deer. Now we know that it takes us 9.5 hours per deer to do these. So whenever we divide the 114 by 143 by 9.5, we get $12.05 an hour. So if you look at this number and you evaluate yourself and you go, you know what, $12.05 an hour is not where I want to be, then clearly we need to raise our hourly rate and go back in and refigure our pricing. Now maybe you figure this out, and with what your pricing is, you go, oh wow, I'm making $36 an hour. I didn't realize that. I was only hoping to make 25. If you're making more money than you anticipated, then just go back in, change your hourly rate to $36 an hour, and don't adjust pricing. But if your pricing is too low and you're not making per hour what you want to be, you need to go back in and raise that pricing. Okay, so now what I want to tell you is something that you're probably not going to believe, but I'm going to tell you that you can raise your price, you can take in less work, and you can make more money. Um, if I told you today that you could take in half as much work and make more money, you would probably tell me that I'm crazy. And if I asked you, if you raise your prices today, do you think it will kill your business? And a lot of people are going to say, yeah, if I raise my prices, I'm not going to take in near as much work. I'm going to show you that that's okay. You don't have to take in all the work to make the money that you need to survive on. So if you take a look at these numbers on the next page, and you're going to understand that you can take in less work and still make more money. All right, this is one of my favorite parts of the seminar because this is where the eyes really come open for a lot of people. We're going to go back to that current pricing of $700. $700 minus the 585.57 is $114.43 profit per deer. We're going to assume that you're taking in 100 whitetails at that price. So 100 whitetails at 111 or $114.43 profit means you made $11,443 worth of profit for those whitetails that you did. And keep in mind, you did 100 of them. Now, we're going to say that I tell you, raise your price this season to $850. And you go, oh my gosh, if I take it to $850, I'm not going to get near as much work. Good, you don't need as much work. So we're going to say that you do $850 minus the 585.57. Now we're going to make a profit of $264.43 per deer. So let's assume that you take in 50 deer now. Your business got cut in half because you raised your price. So we have 50 deer at $264.43. That's a total of $13,221.50. You just made $1,778.50 more, and you did half the work. Keep that in mind, half the work. You didn't do near as much work and you made more money. So if you were to, and that's if it cut your workload in half. I will tell you from experience that raising your price most oftentimes does not cut your workload in half. People are still going to bring the work. So the reason this works this way is because when you raise your price a dollar, all of your overhead and all of those other things are fixed costs. So every dollar you raise your price is a dollar that goes into your pocket. So you can see here that the 585.57, it stayed the same in both of these scenarios. The only thing different was the price that we charged per the deer, which means more money in our pocket for each deer. So again, this is a great way to figure out, how much money you're making. And if you're in a situation where you're 2 years behind, or you're a year and a half behind, or you're taking more work than you want, what you need to do is raise that price, cut that workload back, and you're going to find that you're going to make more money and do less work. It's a no-brainer in my opinion. As in all businesses, you have to have some form of working capital to get work done. In the taxidermy business, this money comes from deposits. Um, it's extremely important that you take a deposit on everything that comes into your shop. The deposit you take in needs to be enough to cover all of your material expenses and pay you some money as well. Um, if your deposit does not cover your material expense, you are probably not charging enough money. Um, that's just the long and the short of it. Um, Once you take this deposit money in, it needs to go into a separate account. It needs to be set aside and be used specifically for buying taxidermy materials. That doesn't mean you get deposits and you go buy a new gun. You don't go on vacation. You don't buy side by side. That money is used for mannequins, for tanning, for all of those things that are taxidermy related, period. Um, if you don't do that, if you don't have that money set aside, you're going to find that you get yourself in trouble. When it comes time to order materials, you're not going to have on hand what you need. So that can create a problem as well. The other thing that you really need to have is a contract. In today's day and age, everybody is, you need to protect yourself. You need to have a well written contract, most likely done by a lawyer, but you need to have it to where it protects you. No guaranteed turnaround times. Those are things that are in my contract. Um, just act of God, freezer failures. You've got to have everything in there that protects you in the event that something happens at your business that is beyond your control. I'm not saying that if you screw up someone's deer head and it's your own fault, you should have a clause in there that says, "Hey, I did bad work. Sorry," but I think that we got to be accountable for ourselves to some degree. But things that are beyond your control, you need to have a contract that protects you from those things, and a contract that states that you're going to be able to get paid or have a way to redeem payment if the customer doesn't pay you. So the contract is as much about providing security and comfort for your customer and protection for your customer as it is providing security and comfort for yourself and your business. The next area of business we're going to dive into is getting your name out there and how to maintain a professional image in your business. And believe it or not, these things are extremely important if you want to grow your business and have the most successful business that you can have. In the world of technology today, let's start out with the basic of social media. There are so many different platforms now that you can be a part of, be it TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, things of that nature. And it's extremely important that you familiarize yourself with those things and that you're able to use them to benefit your business. What I recommend to everybody is that you create a page for your business. Don't try to share your personal page with your business page. I don't think it's great to mix those things together. Have a separate business page, post things on that business page that are business related, and I think it's a great way to grow your business. Social media allows you to almost interact with people in real time. They can comment on your posts. They can see what you're doing daily if you post daily. All of these things are really good for business. It's great to have the ability to keep basically live time with your clientele. And the other thing is the reach of this. So many people are on social media now that the reach is far greater than your local newspaper or your local radio station that gets you very limited access. Social media is worldwide, and the fact that, with shipping as it is today, our business can really be a worldwide business. It doesn't have to be just localized. So have a good social media presence, and that's something that will definitely help you out as well. Here's a couple tricks that I like to do whenever I'm using social media to promote my business. So, whenever I post something on my business page, let's say that I have 4,000 followers on my business page, but let's say I have 10,000 followers on my personal page. What I will do is, rather than post the same content on my personal page, I will go to my business page and I will share that post to my personal page. So what I've done now is I've now exposed my 10,000 people to my account. So whenever they click that, they're going to be taken to the Mountain Critters taxidermy page or my business page or whatever your business page is. So whenever they get taken to that page, now they have a chance to like and follow that page. So that's going to help you grow your audience because now you're cross marketing. You're not only posting to your followers of your business page, but you're posting to all your friends on your personal page. So that allows you to kind of get the best of both worlds. The other thing that I want to talk about is the photos that you post to your page. Um, Whenever you post photos to your page, try to keep them professional. Dirty shop in the background, not your best thing. It is so easy in today's world. Go on eBay, buy yourself a studio kit with a backdrop and some lighting, set that up, take good professional looking photos, and that's really all that you need. Also, today there are so many apps out there, such as Photo Room, that are going to remove the background from your photos automatically and allow you to replace those with, say, a solid black background or whatever. What I will tell you is if you're using Photo Room or something that has a watermark on it, if you can take your picture wide enough so that after you take the photo, if the watermark is, say, in the bottom right hand corner, you can crop it down and pull that watermark out. It gives you a cleaner look to your photos and just allows you to have a little bit more professional look to your stuff. In today's world, photos and just standard text posts are nice, but what the media has really gone to lately, in it's reels, it's shorts, it's videos, whatever you want to call them. It's more interactive. It's more live content. It's more you get to see and hear what the person is doing, and it I think it creates a greater connection. I know that not everybody's comfortable being in front of the camera or speaking to a group of people, but once you learn the fact that you're just talking to the camera and you're going to put it out there to the world, it really doesn't matter at that point. It allows you to have the ability to film stuff, and if you don't like the first take, do a retake. Do whatever you got to do, but get these out there because these videos are really great ways to get more in depth with spreading the word about your business. Another great thing are the live feeds. You go into your shop to mount a deer one day, set the camera up, go live, and let somebody watch you live mount the deer. These things are driving a lot of people's business right now. And while it's not something that maybe everybody's comfortable with, it's something that's definitely an asset if you know how to use it. Of course, when it comes to advertising your business, we're all familiar with business cards. I personally I've just never had great success with business cards. If you go to a sportsman show and you hand them out, they get thrown in a bag with everybody else's stuff. They get home, they get thrown away. Someone takes your card, they walk 10 feet, they throw it in a trash can. I don't feel like business cards are the most effective way to get people your information, especially when we live in such a digital age. What I have found that works really great for me is called a dot card. So it's a hard plastic card. It's very much like a credit card. I carry it in my wallet all the time. And basically, what it is, it's an unlimited business card. So if I meet somebody and I'm out and they'd like to have my information, they can simply tap my card to their phone or scan a QR code that's on the back of my card, and it automatically brings up all of my business information for them. And now they have the option to save that information straight into their phone. It saves it with my name, it saves with my business name, all that stuff is put in there. So for me, if I can get into your phone, chances are I have a great shot at at staying in there. I don't know about you, but I don't clear out my contacts very often, and I also don't go and throw my phone away. So once that information is saved in there, unlike a business card that may get thrown away, it's more likely to stay with somebody. And whenever they kill that trophy or they catch that trophy fish or whatever it may be, and they go, "Hey, I remember that I got that taxidermist information. Where is that?" They can simply scroll through their contacts and bang, there you are. So I personally, like I said, nothing against paper business cards, but for me, with the digital age, the dot card is a really great way to go. So what I want to talk about next is probably the biggest benefit and the biggest hurt to all taxidermy businesses out there. This is word of mouth. Word of mouth is absolutely huge in this business. Um, if you do a really great job for people, they're going to show that off and they're going to tell other people. The flip side to that is if you do a really poor job for somebody, they're also going to tell everybody that. So again, it's extremely important that we manage what we turn out of our studio and that we do the best work that we can. Um, you've got to manage client expectation as well. It's pretty easy to read a client. Sometimes they have unrealistic expectations. Um, and if there's something that they're requesting that's beyond your scope of ability or what you're comfortable with, for me, it's best to turn those jobs down versus take a job that I don't feel like I can do accurately or do the best job on. Because if I turn out a product just to make the money and then it's less than what the client really wanted, that hurts me and the client. And he's going to tell people that. Now, with that being said, there's some clients that you simply can't please. But what I will tell you is that you really need to try to resolve all of your client issues in a professional manner that doesn't result in hard feelings. Because if you can resolve any issues that you may have, um, and end on good terms, that lessens the effect of bad word of mouth. Or if you can make something right for a customer, they're more likely to say, hey, when I went there to this place, this wasn't quite right. And I told him about it and he fixed it. People like that level of customer service. So if there's something you can do to resolve something peacefully, it's always better to do that. Now, with that being said, I'm going to tell you there are some customers that you're never going to please. There are some customers that no matter what you do, you could do a world level competition gold medal piece for them and they will complain about it. Sometimes you just have to cut your losses, fire that customer, and move on with life. And I know it's a hard thing to do, and I know that sometimes you want to be aggravated and you want to pick that fight, but it's not worth it. I promise you that it's not. Let those things go, let that stuff slide, move on to the next guy. Because for every person who doesn't appreciate your work, there'll be 10 people that do. Professional image is something that I think is highly overlooked a lot of times, but is so important. It's extremely important that you present yourself as a professional business person. And when I say this, I don't just mean in your studio. I mean when you're out and about. If you're out, if you're driving, we can't be if you got your business name on the side of your vehicle, don't be the guy who's cutting people off in traffic or having road rage or driving crazy or whatever. People see that, and you're representing your business everywhere you go. If you're out to eat, people are watching you. If you're out at a bar, people are watching you. And I know there's a lot of guys that say, well, I don't care what people think of me. Well, I understand that, but you should care what people think of your business. And when they think of your business, they should be thinking of it as a professional place. Because if you want high end clientele, you want people willing to pay those higher prices. They don't want to deal with the guy who's raising Cain all over town, or the person who's doesn't come across to them as a professional. So it's extremely important that you yourself present yourself in a professional manner in all aspects of your life. The other thing is keep your shop looking professional as well. I mean, I'm guilty. I have a messy shop at times. I have a messy showroom at times. Um, and there's definitely times of the year that it's worse than others, especially when you're in the heat of mounting a bunch of stuff and you're busy. You have a lot of mannequins around, but keep your grass cut. Keep the building clean. Do the best you can to have a professional image, because when someone pulls into your shop, you only get one chance at that first impression. And if they pull in and there's trash all over the place in your parking lot and there's just general dismay going on, that doesn't create the image for them that you want. Because, in my opinion, if I pulled into a place and I see a trashy exterior, I'm automatically going to assume that the work is trashy as well. It gives me a negative experience from the get go. So for me, it's much more important to be able to come into the shop and have everything look nice and professional, and people it makes a warmer experience for them, and it automatically puts them in the mind that this is the place they should be and where they should be spending their money. It also justifies, if you're a higher priced guy and you have a really nice facility, that is easier to justify to people than if you're working out of a really trashed up place. So keep in mind, professional image in yourself and professional image in your business are really important in this line of work. I'm going to briefly touch on websites here. I've had mixed results with websites to the point where I felt like my social media was driving my business far greater than my website was. So I actually took my website down. And within a couple of days of taking it down, I had somebody call the studio and ask if I went out of business. They're like, "Hey, I check your page all the time and it's gone. What happened?" So even though I wasn't aware of it, there's a lot more people following the website than what I thought there were. So with that being said, I put up a new website and we're all good to go there. But for yourself, having a website is important because it lets you reach the people who don't have social media. And believe it or not, there's still people out there who don't. So you have a area of people that you can reach that you may not reach otherwise. So a web page is nice. The downside to the web page is that if you're like me, you don't update it near as often as say your Facebook or your Instagram or whatever else, simply because the fact that it's a little bit more difficult to do, at least for me, that it is. Now, if you're a techie person and you can really handle that stuff, by all means, have a fantastic website, and that will help you out in your business as well. But pick and choose your battles there. If social media is your thing and you don't want to run a website, that's okay. But I do feel like there's certain aspects where a website excels over other areas. So this is huge. From at least in my opinion, it's huge. You need to educate yourself. Taxidermy is not something that you learn one time and that's it. There are techniques, there are materials, there are things that are developing every single year that are new and innovative and either allow us to do things easier or allow us to do things better. So never stop learning. And if there's an area of this business that you feel like you don't excel in, let's say that you're not a great bird guy, it's okay to spend some money, invest in yourself, invest in your business, go somewhere and take a class with somebody to get better at those areas. It's perfectly okay to better yourself through education. I can tell you that any amount of money I've ever spent to learn something new has never been a dollar wasted. Again, it's an investment in your business and it's an investment in yourself. The fact that you're watching this video and you've made it this far along tells me that you are invested in bettering yourself or bettering your business. So that's a good thing. Another great thing to do is network with other taxidermists. Listen, we are not each other's competitors. We are not each other's enemies. We are each other's friends and co-workers. We need to help each other. We need to talk to each other, share information. Ultimately, if we all get better at the craft, we can all make more money. So it's only beneficial to educate one another and help each other out. Um, Again, take the time, invest in yourself, and never stop learning. This is a business that literally changes every day, and you need to stay up to date on that. This next one is going to sound relatively simple, but it's maybe not as simple as what you think it would be, and that's run your business like a business. It may seem simple, but sometimes it's not. I mean, you're in this to make money, and you're going to find that the first thing that happens is you're going to have all the old buddy, old buddy, old buddy, people wanting that old buddy discount. People come up to you and they're like, "Hey, we've been friends for a long time, and I got this buck, and blah blah blah," and it appeals to your personal side that you want to be like, "Oh yeah, well, we've been friends for a long time. Let me help you out." You have to run your business like a business. Um, Discounts are okay at some point in time. Like I do give a military discount, and I do give a discount to kids for their first time at my studio. So, but there's a stipulation that comes with that. When kids come into my studio, I give them a 5% discount if they tell me the story about how they killed or caught whatever it is that they're bringing in. And for me, my mindset with that is by involving the kid in the process, letting him tell the story or her tell the story, what I'm doing is I'm making them feel important. And for me, when the kids feel important, they will remember that. They'll remember the taxidermist that wanted to hear their story. They'll remember the guy who wanted to do that. And not only did he want to hear the story, but he gave me a discount for telling it. So it ingrains good good faith in the kid, it ingrains good faith in the parents, and it helps create repeat business, because we should care about our clients and we should care about all those things. So, there are times and a place where a discount might be applicable, but you shouldn't give a discount just because somebody's a good friend, or a family member for that matter. I mean, family members. Don't get me wrong, I love my family, but I can't. They can't expect me to give them a discount just because they're family. Another good thing is, if you're not great with the books and you're not great with the paperwork and stuff, get an accountant to go over things with you. Maybe you need to hire an accountant to take care of things. That's extremely important. Make sure that you get all of your taxes paid. Make sure you have your estimated taxes, your sales tax, self-employment taxes, whatever else there may be. You need to look into all that stuff. Most businesses are run as a sole proprietorship. Talk to your accountant about becoming an LLC. Those are things that can benefit you as well. Keep track of your receipts. When I say keep track of your receipts, I mean keep track of all your receipts. You do not understand how important this is. The smallest thing, be it a bottle of super glue from Walmart or whatever it may be, keep track of that stuff, because at the end of the year it all adds up. And if it's something that you can write off, then you need to be able to, if it's an expense it. By all means, save those receipts. The other thing is keep track of your mileage. And I will tell you that I did it for years, kept track of mileage with a piece of paper and a pencil, and I absolutely failed numerous times in doing so. What I found is an app called Everlance. I use that app, and whenever I sign in, it's on my phone. My phone's with me all the time. It keeps track of all of my mileage. It will also tell me, what is, I can swipe one way for business, I can swipe the other way for personal. At the end of the year, I have all of my mileage set aside, and it's absolutely perfect. Um, I am saving more money now through the mileage app than I ever did otherwise. Something that I missed at the end of that last slide was, having good taxidermy software. There's a lot of good programs out there. I use taxidermy software systems, and it allows me to keep everything that I have for client information in a digital format. It just helps so much, versus just keeping track of things on paper, because everything's in the computer. It's backed up to the cloud. I print a copy for the studio and I print a copy for the customer. So kind of everything's in four places all the time. Not only that, but it allows me to print tags for antlers, and it just helps me keep track of things so much better. It makes doing estimated taxes, sales taxes, things like that so much easier. So if you don't have a good software program, look into getting something, even if it's just a spreadsheet type thing that would help you organize yourself a little better. So to summarize this whole uh, seminar, first and foremost, learn how to price your work. Nobody out there is going to come in your shop and go, "Wow, I paid you $700 for this deer head, but it looks like a $900 deer head, so here's $900." Um, you will only get what you ask for. I mean, I get the occasional tip, but the occasional tip isn't from everybody. So if you want to make the wage you want, you need to charge what you need to charge. So be sure you have your pricing set accordingly. The next thing, present yourself into a professional manner. Be that in your social media, be it in your business life, be it in your personal life. Run yourself as a professional, and people will see you as such. Lastly, the world's at your fingertips. There is so much technology out there that it used to be taxidermy was there was one in each town, and that's kind of where your business came from. But today's taxidermy business is worldwide, so don't sell yourself short. Get out there, use the technology, and make yourself have a worldwide presence. You'd be amazed at where you'll get clients from. That concludes what I have for you guys today. I hope this business seminar has been something that's been educational for you. um, I myself, I'm an open book. If you need something or you have more information that you'd like to get from me, by all means, please reach out to me. Chad C. You can find me on Facebook. Reach out, if you need something. I'll be more than glad to help you if I can, and if I can't, I'll try to find somebody who can. But that concludes the seminar for today, and I hope you guys have learned something. Thanks so much, and God bless.